Hello everyone, Phoenix61 here with Skull and Bones. It has been a hot minute, but we are now in year 2 for Skull and Bones, and so quite a bit has changed. Some welcome improvements to the game, and a little bit of like UI interface stuff looks a little bit different here and there. But today what I want to talk about is getting your ship level up to level 15. This is where you're going to be the most powerful. So with year 2 here, you can now get up to level 15. I think previously you were, what, it might have been even 13 that we were at last year, right? So, and I almost I went in to manage the ship and I thought my game was going to crash, but it didn't. But yeah, so the main ingredient here to getting your ship level up is going to be better gear in general. So, right, so I'm just looking at the weapons here as an example. But this is going to apply to your armor pieces and your furniture pieces as well. And then we'll also have to talk about upgrading the ship itself also, right? So there's quite a bit that goes into it, but basically, if you look at, the item cards on all of the weapons, you can see up in the top right of the item card, there's a number, right? So it's for these fire bombards, it's 78. For these basilisks, it's 83. Right, so your general rule of thumb is going to be like the lower rarity, right? The greens and blues and whites are going to have lower gear scores, and then the purples are going to have higher gear scores in general. And then you're also now with year 2, you can do some custom modifiers to the weapons, and it's called ascending. And so you can see these like 3 little, I'm looking at these 1,000-year monsoons that I've been playing around with. Right, so this one here is not ascended at all. You can see it doesn't have the 3 diamond or square things down at the bottom of it if you look over on the left side. And then these top ones here you can see have ascended to 1 level. And so the difference is, you kind of get a little bit of perk choice with the weapon itself. And then also, if you notice the gear score on it, it's 91 for the standard one, and it's 98 for one that's ascended up a level, right? So at each ascension you do, you get a little bit higher gear score plus whatever those perks are that you pick, and you do this at the weaponsmith. So I'm gonna show you that as well, right? And so I'm just kind of scrolling through looking at the perk, right? Like this particular one, the perk adds some piercing damage. So the 1,000-year monsoons has flood and explosive damage as its normal base trait, and then the ascension perk, whatever you want to call it, right, also added some piercing here, and so that's kind of what I was like showing up, right? So that's kind of the difference, right? You can have it can add different status effects, better reload, what have you, whatever, right? And then this warhammer I've got upgraded to ascension level 2, and so its gear score is even better at 106. And we've added damage, some electric damage, and some increases existing burning damage by 30%, right? So these do right, some fire damage, right? Burning 1 is on there. It's not crazy, but yeah. So step 1 to getting higher level ship, right? If you're early in the game, is just putting better gear on. And then now with year 2, you can go to the blacksmith and go to this option that says ascend items. And we'll talk a little bit about how to get the materials that you need for this too, if you haven't already. If you're here, you're probably struggling with getting some of those, right? There's one in particular, there's a MasterWork item, right? But yeah, so I'm looking at these Phoenix Talons, right? I've got a couple of these upgraded to Ascension level 2, right? So I think that if you're coming in, if you're a veteran player and you've already played the game, for the last I don't know, pretty much any significant amount within the last year, right? You probably had a ship upgraded to 13. You can get it up to level 14 pretty quickly just by going in here, and I think I had to ascend all of my weapons once, and then maybe a second weapon I ascended to level 2, and that was enough to push me over the hump to get me my gear score high enough to be level 14, right? So then level 15 becomes the challenge, right? So, but we're going to look at the Warhammer here. What's nice about this is, so I do have enough to get it up to the level 3 for ascending, as you can see here, right? So basically what you do is it makes you go in order from top to bottom here, and you do your ascend item. And so you've got to hold A, right? I'm on Xbox console, right? Whatever. But if you don't like a particular roll or perk that drops, you do have some control over it to re-roll it. So what I'm going to do first, though, is I'm going to get my third level here since I have enough. I've got some pieces of 8, and I've got the MasterWork upgrade thingy-majigger, right? So that's there. I spent all my stuff. That gets my gear score up to 113, or 114, sorry, as you can see over on the bottom right there, right? So it was previously 106, so that boosts me a little bit more. Destroying a weak point restores severe damage as the roll that it gave us. But we'll leave that for now, but let's say I don't like this shock one, right? You can spend, it only costs 1 upgrade part to re-roll it. So we will do that, and then the key here is over on the right side, you need to make sure you highlight which perk you want or not, right? So the new one's down at the bottom, so you gotta drop down to that new one, and then you would hold A on it if you like that perk. I don't really know if I want flooding, so I'm going to hold X and re-roll it again, right? So it just costs me some silver and then 1 upgrade part, right? So it's not too bad if you're sort of a veteran player where I've been grinding and hoarding all sorts of materials, right? But explosive damage, that's cool. I like some more explosive damage for my Warhammer, so we'll leave that one. So now we've got a fully upgraded Warhammer with some, or at least most of the perks that I like, right? And so that's the key there, right? So these other weapons I have already upgraded to, and you notice if I used bumpers, right, to tab over to my ship. So, if you look at the very, very top left, right, you could tab over to your current ship and see what items are on your current ship. It's a little easier that way to find the actual weapons you want to upgrade, right? But yeah, keep in mind that that is all for, your gear score is a summation of your armor piece, all your weapons, and all your furniture, right? So you want to try, I don't think you can ascend furniture and stuff, at least not yet, right? But you want to try and get, it's basically the best stuff on your ship, and that's gonna be the quickest, easiest way to get your ship level higher. So next, with the first season here in year 2, 2 things you want to do is there's new story missions for the season. I think they were a green color for this time around, right? But you want to progress through the seasonal story, and then you also want to look for these Ascension Mastery missions. Between those 2, just kind of plowing through those, which didn't take too long, right? You can get a lot of the Ascension upgrade materials, parts that you need, right, for doing those ascending weapons, right? And then William Blackwood does sell them for his new currency, whatever this thing is called. So you can buy 4 from him every hour, every day, or whatever the reset is on that, right? I was finding myself, with what we're going to do, I wasn't low on his currency, right? So I'll show you this. It feels a little bit obnoxious right now to the point where I think the developers might actually change it, right? But and then I think the black market might have some of the stuff too, so you can check. You need a Nara either here or the black market person over in Tlaloc Penjara as well in the East Indies too. But yeah, there's higher end materials in here as well. Yeah, she's got Ascension modules and upgrade parts as well. It's a little pricey because it's pieces of 8, right? So if you're early in a season and you don't have a lot of pieces of 8, that's probably not the way to go. But you guys know me, I enjoy the grind that is working through the factories and grinding and getting tons and tons of pieces of 8, right? So, yeah. And then the sort of last step is going to be upgrading the ship itself. I've talked about this in earlier videos, so this is kind of just a little bit quick of a rundown for the newer stuff, right? So now you do need a MasterWork kit. You could see I have 44 of them, and you might be going, what the hell? That's not, how did you get so many? And I'm going to show you. So you might think that MasterWork kits are probably your bottleneck, but they are not, right? So you want to get through. All right, let's talk about the upgrades, right? So you can hold upgrade preview button, right, on Xbox, it's Y. And then you can see, especially if you're a newbie, right, this is kind of something you want to work your way through whenever you can. But if you're at the higher levels and you want to get your ship up to level 15, the key is going to be these last 3 upgrades, because 5, 6, and 7, right? Upgrade 5, 6, and 7 all give you an increase to your base ship rank of 1, right? So, yeah, at 5, you get your ship up to 7. The next level is 8. The next level is 9, right? So, like, that's going to be, those will be your biggest boosts in sort of your upgrades, right? And you want to follow. So what you want to do next, right? If you run into, I don't have any of these MasterWork things, right? You want to follow these Ascension Mastery missions is the next step, right? Because now with year 2, there's a new world tier thing that you can play around with. And so eventually your Ascension Mastery mission is going to lead you up to the sort of north side of the map. And there'll be a mission up there that is pretty tough, right? So you might want to try and get your ship as best as you can for when you're working that through. But it basically gives you a series of boss fights, and what it does is once you beat it, don't let yourself down if you don't beat it right away, because I actually died a couple of times trying to fight some of the bosses. It lets you, rejoin at sea, and then you can, continue to fight it, right? It won't make you redo the whole fight. It just kind of makes you fight that most recent boss. But then you can go to, once you complete that, you can then unlock World Tier 2, which of course is harder, which is what we just went into, right? So outside of the black market in both St. Anne and Talak Banjara, you can go and change your world tier. You can always go back to Tier 1 whenever you want. There's basically one thing I've been doing in World Tier 2, and that's plundering the Mega Fort Olafston, right? So I'm going to show you this. So, so we're in St. Anne right now, but this is, Mega Fort Uston, however you say that, right, is kind of where it's at. And don't be alarmed that it says recommended level 18, because we're going to go in here and look. If we go in the world view, we can see there is a whole bunch of people at Mega Fort Uston right now. So I'm going to go over there because I'm going to wager a guess that is exactly what they are doing. So it almost, we're early in the season, early in the year 2 update, right? But basically right now what I've noticed is, for the most part, World Tier 2 is actually just anyone who's in World Tier 2 go and farm Megafort Uston, right? So I was doing this with my ship at rank 14, right? So you don't even need to be, because there's so many freaking people over here most of the time. If there's not, right, just go and do something else for a little bit and then come back and check later. But this happened to be like the perfect example. I just happened to go over there. This is probably, well, perfect example / worst example, because there's so many people over here doing it that I didn't have to do squat for the, right? So like normally I have to participate. But the other thing you want to do when you get over here, right, is I'm zooming in on people and scoping them to see if they're in an open mode and see if I can join somebody's group. Because and I leave myself in open, so if you ever see me out there, feel free to just zoom in on me and join me. But basically why I do that is because your reward drops for killing ships and stuff is going to be a little bit better. And some of the ships drop 8s. But yeah, so we'll go get close enough to the fort, do the plunder. I'm checking a few more people. I gotta find somebody has gotta either, they might be full too, they might already be in a group, but I'll find somebody that isn't in a group and join them, just because it's gonna give you a little bit better rewards. There's somebody, so we'll join them, right? Doesn't matter, right? If you're in open, you're in open, right? Like this, I play the same way, and I leave myself open so that anyone can join me anytime. So now we're in a group, and we're plundering this fort, and look, it's so hard, guys. Look how hard it is. Everybody's already got all of the fort, weapons on the fort destroyed and stuff. I think we're at the third to last stage, which is destroy one of the walls. But yeah, this was the easiest time I've ever had with it. Like normally when I go over here, I have to do some participating, right? Like it hadn't been quite this easy. But when you're in World Tier 2, which you can see up in the top, very, very top right, up to the top right where our compass thing is, right? There's a number 2 up there now, right? So that means we're in World Tier 2. Yes, everything is harder. So pretty much all I do in World Tier 2 is I've went and fought a couple other bosses occasionally when other people were doing it to just see. But for right now, plundering this particular fort has been the most valuable. Yeah, I couldn't even get to the wall to help shoot it in time. Anyway, but yeah, so if you start the plunder from the beginning, there's at 2 points you can get those MasterWork item drops, and so that's why I had so many, right? So I had just been doing this for a while, and so yeah, so at one point you get 2 of them, and then at the final stage you get 2 of the MasterWork items as well. So each plunder you can walk away with 4 of these things, right? So you need 1 to upgrade your ship to the final level, and then you need 1 for each of your weapons that you want to ascend to their final levels as well. And then also doing this plunder too, right? So I'm just literally sitting here just collecting, right? Yeah, so you also get pieces of 8. We also got some upgrade parts. You can see them dropping over on the right over there. And then there's the final stage. They just completed as well. So if you look over on the right, you can see what we're getting again. More probably 8s, and then yep, and then upgrade parts, and then there's our 2 MasterWork kits. I always forget that they're called kits, right? So you can stick around and farm it some more if people do. I typically, what happens to me is I'm so overloaded with stuff from all of the ships and things that I end up going back to the nearest location and like selling off and unloading stuff into the warehouse. Couple other things to note, right? So now my bottleneck then quickly became pieces of 8, right? So I'm working through upgrading my factories. If you're not familiar with the Codeex, right, you can go into the Codeex here, and if you're short like a particular material item, you know, you can click on it here. Like, let's do rubber for an example. That's a pretty common one. If you click on it here, it will highlight locations that you can get that particular item in the map, right? So this is kind of a little bit of a like a newbie thing, right? If you're kind of newer to the game, you might not know this, but there's a few there's like a couple of trade routes where you could potentially find ships to get rubber, that kind of thing. So yeah, if you're not familiar with the Codex, that's an easy way to find specific materials. The other thing is going to be the Refinery, right? So at the Refinery, a lot of times you can take lower level materials and refine them up into the higher level materials, which are going to be down here towards the bottom, right? So if we wanted to make rubber, we could just if we have lacquer and the saltpeter, we could make a bunch of rubber, right? So same with all of this other stuff. So another thing to keep in mind, right, if you're short on a material to try and, you know, upgrade your ship in particular, because some of those get pretty expensive and material intense and heavy, right? That's one way to find those items. The other thing too, William Blackwood sometimes has stuff, and then the black market also has stuff. But like I said, with the black market, you're spending 8s, and if you're early on in a season, you probably don't have a lot of pieces of 8. But you can get them from here if you absolutely feel like I needed 1 more for something, you know, like I might go in there. But yeah, she's got Ascension materials and upgrade parts as well. But like I said, that's a little bit expensive if you're short on 8s, right? If I'm late in a season and I'm drowning in 8s from farming my factories and stuff, then it's not a problem at all. But and I may do another video on farming pieces of 8 too. I did one for almost every season last year, and so the concept is still similar. They've done some tweaking here, but right, you go in and basically once you've captured a factory, you can produce 8s at it. That is what I recommend doing, is producing the 8s, unless you need something in particular from that factory. And then you can assign ships, right? So what I had done is I had built out just a fleet of very generic ships and just threw on weapons and stuff that I wasn't using on those ships. And so all these ones with the little factory symbol on them are all my fleet ships that are gathering 8s for me. And then what you do is you need to get them upgraded to at least level 2 to be able to assign a ship to it. And then when you do that, then every time it gets to a certain point, right, it looks like this one's at 340, right? Once it gets to 340 pieces of 8, that ship then delivers them to St. Anne for you automatically. There happens to be a takeover available for me right now, but I already have that location, right? So those are the missions you want to look for. You know, the hostile takeovers, the supply run, or what is it? The buyout, right? There's a legendary heist, right? Those all get you unlock factories for you. And then If you look, special note over on the left, you can see, I see where it says the red 37 of 37. That's the number of factories that you're allowed to own. You can upgrade that. You need to go into the upgrades here in the helm, and it's these ones that have the like Kraken Octopus plus symbol looking on it, right? These particular upgrades are the ones you're looking for to add more, to be able to own more of the factories, right? So keep that in mind too. If you're maxed out on the level on how many you're allowed to own, or if you already own a location and you do that activity, they still give you some like raider caches and some pieces of 8. So sometimes it's still worth doing. It did look like amongst each faction there was maybe 1 or 2 options in there to like add more factory capacities, right? So just some side notes to keep in mind. Those are some of the things that I run into, but hopefully this video was helpful for you, right? I kind of tried to cover the main points in a very short amount of time, right? So this is kind of my first video for year 2 of Skull and Bones, but a lot of the concepts from the past and some of the builds from the past still kind of apply, right? Like the game hasn't changed that much in year 2. So I have a link in the description to my previous Skull and Bones content, my Skull and Bones playlist, so check that out. But thanks again for watching. Make sure you're following the channel. I do plan to do some more Skull and Bones videos this year. For your following, we'll see you next time. Thanks again.